Welcome to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. I am CDJ, joined by Tommy and JBHuskers. Guys, how's it going?
Hey, we got the whole gang together today. It's been a while.
Some interesting things to talk about, interesting developments, interesting reactions from communities that kind of doing a 180. So it's kind of wild. Hopefully there's some change in the game eventually that'll kind of satisfy everybody. But it's been an interesting launch, so to speak.
We're going to get to the good, bad, and ugly of College Football 26. We asked the community to weigh in with their thoughts, and we had a lot of good responses, which we'll go through. Briefly, let's talk about a couple other small items just to get them out of the way. This past week, we did have a Q1 2026 earnings call for EA. College football was mentioned. I think the big takeaway here is that obviously they talk about the strong reviews, enthusiastic reception from the community, kind of get your boilerplate kind of PR lines here. What's most interesting or noteworthy is that 2025, as they say, had a decade of pent-up demand. They expect 26 to settle into a more normal demand curve, which I guess if you want to read that in English, that means sales are going to come down from last year, which is not a shock when the game was, the top selling U.S. sports game in history by money last year. Take this with a grain of salt. A few weeks ago, someone on Reddit had found Linea estimates that the game 1.9 million in the first couple weeks after launch, which on its face is really good, but that was about a third of what 25 did, which I think that
Well, and
shows.
plus, I say that also, I'm sure includes the people who had the trial with EA Play. Even if they just had the 3-day trial, they still had to
Mm,
download it. So
mm.
it's not necessarily doesn't necessarily translate to sales.
If you just take the number at face value, that kind of puts it in line where I think Matt Brown reported they thought 25 would do. They thought 25 would be about a quarter of Madden. Well, if Madden sells its typical, it's probably right in line with that, maybe a little higher yet, but that apparently might be the new curve or new, standard demand curve that Andrew Wilson talked about during that conference call. One other thing to mention, college basketball, we talked about this last show. It got a brief mention at the, aforementioned Q1 26 earnings call. What's interesting is he says they cannot say much yet, but they hope to use the same approach from college football in representing schools and players and traditions. He says as they look to try and activate against that opportunity, when you read it, uh, part of me wonders, okay, so they just can't say anything yet. But then part of me says, when you read it, you're like, this thing may not be official yet. Part of that is
Mhm.
2K keeps changing again. Since our last show, that report comes out that they will put out a standalone college basketball game, and they have about 100 schools already on board. It seems like 2K is really trying to tiptoe into the college basketball world. Almost, they started off as they're going to add to my team, and now it's okay. Now we want to do a standalone game. So I wonder if there's something on behind the scenes to, will there not be exclusivity? Maybe EA wants it. Maybe there's still a fight for it. I don't know where this game is at right now. Do you guys have any? I mean, I think it's coming. I think they will make it. Maybe it's just a fight of how many studios get to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what a couple of weeks ago there was the leaked letter from 2K that basically as I read it, and I think others read it, is that basically he was saying to the schools, don't approve EA's, plan yet,
Mm,
which to me tells me that there is not a final plan. It's nothing set in stone. Again, like you said, at least three studios want to do it. We don't know who the third one is, but at least three studios want to do something there. EA has big plans. It looks like they're trying to drag 2K if they're going to do big plans or not. So
mm,
to me, I think 2K obviously has the leg up there in terms of the game engine, but at the same time, EA has a leg up in terms of their
mm,
relationship with schools and
mm.
kind of doing the NIL thing. So at the end of the day, we'll have to kind of wait and see how it happens. But I would imagine that 2K does, if they are able to do a full thing, they do something slow, in the next year or two, but then have a full release title around the same time that EA probably would.
Yeah, it's very, it's very ambitious that you're going, it's going to be a huge undertaking to
Mm,
include every school and include every intricate detail that that school has for
mm,
basketball. I mean, that's going to be a lot of research, B, a lot of to put into the game. And is that something they can do right away? Where 2K, yeah, like Tommy said, they could
mm,
just go ahead and just throw out, I would say at minimum it would be the tournament field and do like 60 to 70 teams. I would say that
mm,
would be the minimum, but it would be kind of hard to have put out a standalone game unless you're just including this into 2K, which
Hmm.
is also something we've talked about before. But if 2K is gonna do a standalone game at the minimum, you got to think it's got to be a tournament field so you can have March Madness in the game. But it's interesting just because, EA has a hard time keeping up with 130, 140 college football teams. What are they going to do with 350, eventually 400, possibly Division I basketball schools?
That's a good point, JB. It's one of those that, and EA says they want to do men's and women's. So technically, you're looking at 700 schools. I know a lot of those
But
schools share the same arena and court, but there's a lot that don't. There's some that the women play at a smaller venue. Like how intricate are we getting here with courts and court designs and uniforms and tournament selection and a conference schedule and dynasty mode and ultimate team and maybe a single player mode. How do you do that in a 3 or 4 year window?
Honestly, I think the answer is that you don't realistically do that. I mean, again, with college football, they had done NCAA, yes, 11 years ago, but they'd also been doing Madden alongside of it. So
Mhm.
it's not like they were completely, out of their depth or whatever. But with college basketball, their last version of basketball game was awful. They haven't made a college basketball game in what, close to 20 years,
Since
nearly.
'09.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, long story short, that's a big hill for them to climb.
So first year back, they have to have the best gameplay they ever had in a basketball game. Good luck.
maybe maybe
Absolutely.
that maybe that third company's 989 Sports. Big
I
return.
I wonder if the third company's fighting for their, seat at the table behind the scenes as well. So we asked the community this past week, with the game being, approaching a month after release, what are you enjoying? What's the good part of the game in your mind? What's the bad? What needs work, whether it be for the user, by the user, or from on EA side? And what's the ugly? What has you upset or frustrated? What makes you just wonder, how did this ever get out of the studio in this way, shape, or form? Let's walk through some of these responses, and as we go through it, well, we'll throw in our thoughts and maybe build on if there's something a point that a community member made that we want to build upon. Coach Schoen starts us off. He says, I really, really love the gameplay now. Common problems are small. He says my least favorite part of the game is there's too much coaching turnover in the offseason carousel that don't make logical sense. Ugliest thing is there aren't enough realistic offseason job offers for your coach with success. Limit of 4 offers is silly. The rotating coaching carousel of NCAA 14 was way more fun, and you could see where coaches were landing and what jobs were opening up. Right now, it feels static and less fun. I will say it's interesting if you go back to the Split Zone Duo podcast. This question basically came up about the carousel. Is it better? Just paraphrasing the quote was, yes, it is better. There was a comment made that 14 was not as great as we remember, mainly because of the user experience in terms of having to wait for each user to sign on to decline an offer. Like you might know you're number two on the list. You had to wait. Yes, I understand on EA side that that could be a pain for the user. But for now, for two versions of this game, what I see when I read comments online is people would kill for that format to be back because the logic was so much better. It overcame the burdensome aspects of having to wait for another user to pop on. We already have extra time now with the bowl season and the playoffs. The way they've had it in the game. What's an extra couple weeks to get the carousel right?
Like while waiting for a user, still the fun factor of the carousel in
Hmm.
14 is miles ahead of what it
Hmm.
is here. There was a fun factor to it.
Hmm.
And even though we had to wait for a user, I don't think, at least in our, speaking for our dynasties, we really didn't mind that. Just
Hmm.
because there was a fun factor and it was a pretty legitimate for the most part, chance to get to move up to a better school uh compared to what we have now.
There's part of the
Now
drama
it's
waiting to see what they would do. I mean, you could talk
yeah,
about that behind the scenes. Oh, is JB going to take that job? If not,
yeah.
Tommy's got a chance at it, or someone's got a chance. Whereas now, it's one user and that's about it. It's
Yeah,
not.
you click
It's not
on you
fun.
click on a
Yeah.
screen and see what you got, and then that's it. There's
Hmm.
no fun factor, there's no drama, there's nothing to it. And on top of that, even if you are successful, most of your offers are crap. It's like nobody that like I think like one of you guys made the playoffs and you were offered a job as an OC somewhere. It's
That
like
was me with
who would
Northwestern offered
yeah.
me OC after taking Texas State to the playoffs.
It's like who your next step would not be that. So yeah, it's definitely not better, and it's not as fun. It's really just turned into a kind of an eyesore for the game just because
Mm.
of how much fun 14 was.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, 14 was much better. As long as there's a way for the commissioner to be able to force a decision if the guy's not getting on or something like that,
Mhm.
then I'm good with that, you know. To me, though, it should be, I don't know that I would say a combination of the two, but something more in the lines of realistic to where in real life, you're talking to your agent. These are the schools I want to talk to. Why don't you go
Mhm.
talk to them on my behalf? You know, these are the teams that I want to go coach at. This is where I think an opening is going to happen, that kind of thing. So, you know, some obviously I'm not saying put literal agents in the game, but somehow make it to where you can, you know, suggest interest in openings that you think are happening or going to happen, or, you know, have your dream school that you want to aim for. And if it comes open, no matter what else is going on, you want to go there, kind of thing. I mean, there's got to be much better ways than what we've got now. Like you said, it's limited that one guy gets the offer and that's it, period. Nobody else has even got a chance for it. So, yeah, it's frustrating and annoying. And you know, I know Sean mentions that no good job offers, and yes, I totally get that. But at the same time, sometimes there's too good of a job offer. You know, in
Mhm.
some of my test dynasties, I forced win for Buffalo every game, and not in week one, but rather week two, I was offered the head coach of Oregon, which to me, A, why are they coming open week two? That means that the head coach of week Oregon left somewhere else in week one.
Mhm.
Again, that's really not realistic. But yeah, to me, a head coach of Buffalo after one season should not be getting top tier offers. Yes,
Mhm.
you know, a 3-star, 4-star, sure, but not a 5-star.
Maybe to be fair to EA, do we know is it better if you just do a single player offline dynasty? Is the logic at least better there?
I think so because then they're not trying to offer it to multiple users. You know, it's a little bit better. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better, but at the same time, it's not going to be,
That doesn't
you
help
know,
with the
miles
dynasty
ahead.
though. Where, you know, multi-user dynasty that doesn't help.
Right,
But
right.
That's where you know EA
there's
says
like
it's fixed,
multiple.
but it depends how you split hairs on that on that phrasing.
Well, if you have multiple people interested in a job or vice versa, the job's interested in multiple people, it's like, why don't you put in some sort of recruiting system, something similar to a recruiting system that is kind of the equivalent of a job interview, you know,
Mm.
and let then the team picks the who they feel is the best candidate from the answers that you get off the interview type of
I don't know that it has to be a mini game quite like that, but at the same time, I get where you're
deal.
going. You know, at least give me some way to throw my hat into the ring and then somehow to separate me from the other
Mm.
guy. That, you know, I'm a better fit for your school.
The Ultimate Warrior says dropped bubble passes that get scooped up for a touchdown by the defense. Have you guys seen that? I've not run a lot of those, so if I don't know if that's a big widespread issue, but I trust him on this.
I haven't seen the dropped bubble passes that get scooped up. I definitely have seen, especially in our dynasty, that the cornerbacks are playing the receiver a lot tighter, and then as well
Mhm.
the lead blockers ignore the corner that's directly over the receiver. So, you know, the corner can be right in their face and
Mm.
there's no way to catch the ball sort of thing. So I don't know if
Seem
that's kind of related or not.
it seems like the bubbles are more of a cluster of four people that just seems like sometimes it could be a random cluster and then the ball just hits the back of somebody's head.
Now I've seen that. I've seen that plenty of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keelan McLean weighed in with a few items here. He says your coach scheme shouldn't matter too much as far as coaching openings. Just because I run the beer and shoot doesn't mean a team that didn't run shouldn't offer me a head coaching job. Offenses do change, and obviously, if they fired the head coach, whatever offense and defense wasn't working. Let's go by that point first. I think that's part of the carousel problem we have is that there's too much reliance on like it may look at alma mater, it may not. It may look at play style, it may not. Like I don't think the pattern or logic there makes it
Pipelines
much
and
doesn't make enough much sense. Yeah, the pipeline is another disaster.
Hmm.
I don't know. I agree with this point completely. I should say that. I just think there's too much behind the scenes that are affecting the hiring logic, which adds to the problems of carousel, which we just mentioned a minute ago.
yeah, I completely agree. Again, I can understand why it fits into that the way it does is because it's the same issue that we're running into. You can't offer the same job to everyone, so you kind of narrow it down as tightly as you possibly can. But then that means that, you're ignoring a coach that probably would have been interested in the job or, would have been a good fit or something like
Mm.
that. So I can understand certain schools that are always going to be, Army, Navy, Air Force, Georgia Southern used to be that way. They're
Mm.
always going to be looking for, a triple option. Georgia Southern's kind of transitioned away from that. And then, now you kind of have some different offense happening there that they're having a little bit more success than they had in the past few years or so. But long story short, it shouldn't matter if it's going from a spread to a veer and shoot or a spread to an air raid or something like that. Yeah, I can understand not going from Michigan State, under center to an air raid. I can understand
Mm.
that. But at the same time, from a spread to another spread, to me, it's not such a big stretch.
I think it would make sense also if it looked at, like you talked about, changing your style. I can understand if maybe a coach left and the program had success, they want to look for that scheme. I think that makes sense. But do we know, does the game, if you are especially a user, for example, if you're a coordinator, can you get offered the head coaching job at your same school? I've heard people online say you cannot.
I never saw it in 25, and in my testing in 26, I've never seen it.
Then that's a big problem
which
as
is
well.
wild. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah.
Yeah.
To me, they should be the first on the list, or at least in the first bunch, of targets.
Especially if they had success, you think they'd want to just promote it within. So that right there,
Yeah.
the logic, it just needs a lot of work. He also has overall, I'm enjoying it, but there are definitely things that need to be added and improved upon. We need to create a prospect and or the ability to alter recruit appearances. I'd also like to manually be able to change development traits and player styles will randomly change in Dynasty. And I'm sure you guys have seen where if you edit a player, I believe that's what he means by player style. If you edit certain animations of a player, I believe that what I've seen is it's a bug. There might be a few in the game that it goes away after like one game. It resets or resets shortly thereafter. It doesn't stay long term. A lot of little things. The creators project is interesting. I think EA wants to stay away from chancing anybody putting anything licensed or real in the game that they don't have a license for. Keelan wraps up with that. I'd also like to see the gear selection menu upgraded. For example, have one section to dress a player for hot weather, another section for cold weather. The good, dynasty upgrades, gameplay additions, and playbook variety. The bad, lockups during pre-snap adjustment at times and using custom playbooks. He wonders if there's a memory leak. And the ugly, the limited play clock time in games due to auto chew clock leading to false starts. I think he covers a wide range there. I don't even know where to start because he does go through a pretty good list of all. Dynasty upgrades, is the game getting enough credit or conversely, or were the upgrades not good enough to warrant a huge praise for 26? I can see both sides of this argument.
Yeah, I can definitely see both sides as well. I think
Mm.
they're headed in the right direction with some of the stuff, but they didn't flesh it out very well. For example, the dynasty upgrades making the transfer portal more matter a lot more. To me, that's a
Mm.
great thing. But then they didn't tailor it or fine tune it to the point that all teams are using it the right way or whatever. I mean, if you don't touch it, if you leave the default transfer settings,
Mm.
then all of the low tier schools end up losing prestige. They end up with
Mm.
like 50 to 60 roster teams, and it's bad. So I mean, the ideas there is good,
Mm.
but the execution is where it really falls apart, in my opinion.
Good. Same
And to
go
me,
for
that's a lot of the stuff with the dynasty upgrades.
same for the manual XP. Like it's great they added it, but then you can just play one dynasty and realize I'm not getting any points during the year. And then you get examples of guys who are posting screenshots online of getting mat level random player with a massive point dump at the end of the season. That it just seems like it's easier just to leave it on the automatic adjustment, which is not what the community asked for.
No. But I mean, that's what I've been doing. So
Right.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing to me, and this is probably what we'll do in our dynasty unless they change it before we get to the off season. But to
Mm.
me, keep the auto progression on during the regular season, so you
Mm.
get some, XP, and then obviously the CPU does the upgrades, but at least you get some points there. And then just before off season progression, you turn it to manual, and then you can go about it that way and kind of have the best of both worlds. The other thing that I recently discovered is even though
Mm.
we have auto turned off on our, or excuse me, auto turned on ours, if you play a game and the player earns enough XP to be able to go up a level, you can go in and spend those points for them. Even though auto is turned on, you can still go in and spend those points before the advance to the next week.
So it's half on, half off. It's not a complete on-off
Exactly.
switch.
Yeah,
He has a good
exactly.
point with the ugly limited play clock time in games due to auto chew clock. I've noticed, let me know if you disagree, especially on a change of possession. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's way less time on that first down as compared to every other time. I know how many times I've changed possession, get the ball, all of a sudden there's less than 10 seconds on that play clock. And I didn't waste that much time picking a play. Like there's some hiccup or glitch in
Yeah.
there, leading to false starts. I've noticed that if you make adjustment too late, you're more likely to get a false start by your offensive line. And I don't know that I completely agree with that. Like sometimes I think it's just like viewing your blocking or making small adjustments. All of a sudden, I don't know that I agree with EA's logic to where that's so high. And I don't know that we've adjusted settings in our dynasty for this, but I'm surprised that's not a bigger complaint. I agree with Pegasus on this. There's too many false starts for reasons that I don't agree with.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that as
Mm,
well. Like you said, for the change of possession
mm,
clock, that was a big issue in 25 as well.
mm,
I would go in and try to, do a formation sub or something like that, and then realize, I have 5 seconds to pick a
mm.
play, and then obviously can't get it off in time. So, yeah, I don't know what causes that or why it happens, but definitely it's frustrating.
Did they eliminate the vibrating of the controller when your play clock gets low this year? I notice I've been caught off guard. I don't feel like I'm getting the cues on that side, but I know the game gives you, the red is ticking, but I don't feel like I'm getting the controller notification like I did in 25. Maybe I need to
I
pay
thought it
attention
I
to it
thought it was
more.
like a small vibrate at 5 seconds.
Maybe I need to double check into that. I just feel like it's not as maybe it's not as blatant as I think it should be,
Yeah, I think it
especially if
may
it's
be just a
not
blip.
consistent.
Yeah.
Richard Sal says the good crossplay being allowed for online dynasty. I agree with him there. More coach levels to make builds more exciting. I think that's a good one as well. Manual progression for players for skill points. The bad and ugly. This is one I've seen a lot. Aggressive catching, extremely overpowered. And Stadium Pulse doesn't let you hot route, super annoying for away games. Let's talk about the aggressive catching. I think if you play a lot online, you probably see it more than obviously if you play the computer because it's one of those, it's a big issue when you have it happen to you. If you do it at the computer, nobody really complains about that being too overpowered. I have heard of that quite a bit. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Maybe you guys haven't played enough, randos or people online who can do that, but I know I've seen quite a bit of discussion about this.
Yeah, I haven't played any randos online at all.
Mm,
Most of the time I'm playing with lower tier
mm,
schools, so it's to me it's not overpowered. But you can tell a big difference between a receiver that has spec catch versus one that doesn't.
mm,
So I think that's where a lot of it comes in, that and catching traffic. So the ratings in that case matter a lot. Now, is it too overpowered once you get to, all of your receivers have that, so now all of them can do those catches?
mm.
Maybe that's part of the issue or something like that. But I will say when you have good receivers and bad receivers on the field, you can tell the difference between the two.
Mm,
I think to me it just sounds like the online people have found a way to kind of succeed basically with choosing the right
mm.
guys that can do that.
The other side of that is in this year, it's huge that you shouldn't be going for interceptions as much as you did in 25.
Mhm,
Definitely need to swat a lot more. I've learned that because my play style grade was horrible because I was trying to go for interceptions too much.
mhm.
So to me that's a huge difference. Go for the swat a lot more this year
Yes.
and you'll have a lot better results there.
And some of those SWAT animations are more than just swatting the ball. Like the ball can be in the receiver's hands and they will continue and just pound it. It's really more of a pass breakup than it is a swat button. I know what
Yeah,
EA
yeah.
calls
Yeah,
it, but
it's
the user needs to call it something different to fully understand what the power of it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like even sometimes you'll see linebackers that are coming back into zone and they kind of are looking back and then they kind of do that swat. It's something I don't think I saw in 25 hardly at all. So that's kind of a neat animation that they've kind of added for those swats too.
For Richard's point on aggressive catching, I do think there's some of that in offline games. I've noticed this year I'm getting the impression that and it's taking me time to adjust to it, is that you can make some great catches downfield, like in one-on-one situations that you couldn't in 25. I'm not so sure that that isn't overpowered as well. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it and take advantage of it. I'm having trouble going deep in the game, like in terms of seeing separation and getting that compared to 25. But there's times where I'll go deep, sometimes on accident, press the wrong button, for example. and still make the catch because I'm able to either lock on or they're able to do an animation to pull it in where in my mind I'm thinking, okay, this is getting swatted or picked. And yes, there's plenty of those, but there's a lot of times where, oh, he made that catch. Maybe I need to, I hate to say force it in there more, but maybe a user shouldn't be afraid once in a while to force a ball downfield, for example.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think those 50-50
Mm.
catches are actually now closer to 50-50.
Mm.
I don't know which way is better or worse, but
Right.
definitely it's a huge improvement from 25. It seemed like you couldn't throw if they were even, in their shadow. There's no way you could throw it downfield sort of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
Whereas now you can kind of throw it up and almost like a Hail Mary, pray that they come down with it.
Mm.
It's definitely not 50-50 with my team on Dynasty, but I know when I've played Chris a lot, we would see a bunch of those where it wouldn't happen. But I don't know. I don't know if my guys are just slow as hell or what. But I do get kind of beat by the bomb on the computer. Kind of wings it deep and takes a lot more chances than they used to. I noticed, and then that might just be because my team is slow. But yeah, like I noticed that at least the 50-50 is definitely there when it's, kind of an even matchup, which is nice. Yeah, because it was near impossible unless
Hmm.
you had that guy beat, but with what was it like the takeoff?
Right.
If they had a takeoff one, and had them beat like that. But other than that, if they were in step with you, it was very rare in 25 for that to be completed.
Let's talk about some of the good that Richard mentioned there. Crossplay being allowed for online dynasty, I think that's a welcome addition. We all knew that would be. More coach levels, and we talked about the manual progression to skill points. If it works, I think it's great. Right now, it's a little touch and go. But those coach levels, guys, what do you think of that addition?
I think it's a huge difference. That's always been my complaint in the past, even going back to, old NCAA days, is that everybody basically follows the same progression. You just, kind of unlock the next step every time. And that's kind of how it was in 25. Whereas now yes, there's more coach levels, things are more expensive. But then at the same time, you have to kind of think about how you want to unlock certain, traits. For example, I started as a recruiter. Do I want to go which other route do I want to go after recruiter to then build it out? Because odds are you're probably not going to unlock all three of the base ones, whereas
Hmm.
in 25, probably everyone
Everybody
did.
did.
Yeah. So you want to unlock kind of two key ones and then, kind of build from there sort of thing. So it's a lot more expensive to unlock extra ones, which to me that's a great thing.
Mm.
As you get better, it shouldn't be as easy to bump up everything else.
Yeah, like compared to us, compared to some friends of mine's dynasties who go like really super fast. We did progress pretty well. We played what 10 seasons or something like that, or
Mm.
8 to 10 or
Eight,
something like
but yeah,
that.
eight.
We were basically all maxed out though by that point as coaches, and we're kind of going at a modest pace compared to a lot of other dynasties. So you can only imagine those other ones, they probably were all level 50, so quickly. So expanding this out is definitely a great addition, and as Tommy said, picking and choosing what you got now because you're not going to be maxing things out as quickly is very key, and it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to unlock the next step. I think I'm tactician or whatever. What is the one on the far right? Do you know off the
Motivator.
Yeah, I think Motivator is the one I'm with right now, and then so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to unlock the other kind of the other parts there to be able to kind of spread out your uh, your portfolio for building the coach skills.
Last on Richard's point there, he mentions about the stadium polls not letting you hot route, super annoying for away games. I think this is interesting because the last 2 years now, that has been a big selling point from EA, home field advantage. They hype it up, put a lot of work into it, but then you get a lot of resistance saying, well, that's not actually anymore in real life how things work in terms of they have other ways to notify changes. And sometimes it's not that difficult to make these changes on the road. And I understand there's the video game versus real life aspect. Do you agree with the route EA has taken, as he calls it, making it super annoying for away games, or is it one of those that EA is simply trying to make it more, find more ways to make the game more challenging for the user? Because I don't think it affects the computer much. If it does, I sure don't see it. There's a lot of things that I see, um, they increase the ramp for the user to make it more challenging, but I don't see that the computer has that same burden.
Like you said, I don't know that it's necessarily true to life. It's more of a game mechanic sort of thing.
Mm.
It to me,
Mm.
I don't want to say that I like it, but in some sense, I appreciate it from the sense that you have to kind of adjust your how you call plays and
Mhm.
how you try to silence the crowd and stuff like that. You don't just go in and start chunking the ball down the field and then
Right.
punt. You have to kind of slowly, methodically, quiet the crowd down a little bit and then try to keep them quiet, sort of thing. I do appreciate that they made it to where now you can at least hot route your running backs and tight ends a lot easier than you could last year.
Mm.
So that you can tell them to stay in a block easier than before. It's to me it's a video game mechanic. It's
Mm.
not perfect. I wish there was a better solution, but it's what we have, and it doesn't bother me so bad, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah, I think a way to a way to maybe mitigate that is possibly with maybe your quarterback skill, because obviously how do you how do you do those with a loud crowd? You use hand signals and things like that. So maybe if your quarterback has some kind of a good awareness or something like that, he's able to kind of do that stuff on the road as opposed to some quarterback that may not have that as high of
Mm.
a skill. Is maybe a way to probably get around that. But I kind of see what he's saying where it's impossible to do. But as Tommy said, there's ways that, there's ways that you have to kind of go about attacking a hostile environment in order
Mm.
to kind of calm things down. So, but I understand both sides of the coin, but I think that it's something you
Mm.
could do maybe that's tied to the quarterback that could kind of help you be more successful at that on the road.
Mm.
Well, and there also is a coaching trait that you can unlock that basically makes the away crowd not matter as much.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to progress quite a bit to get there,
Mm.
but there's ways to do it. I would almost wonder if maybe make it to where, tactician, for example, you can unlock pretty early the ability to do hand signals or something like that.
Mm.
Like it's not there automatically, but you basically are better at teaching your players how to do it. But to
Mhm.
JB's point, not everybody is going to be able to see the hand signals as well. You do need to have it, the awareness play into that, whether it's the receiver's awareness or the
Mm.
QB's awareness or something, have it to where that impacts it as well.
And I think if you do like a separate hand signal mechanic or something, then maybe make it more of a limited choice of the routes. You get maybe 2 to 4 options instead of however many you
All of
got
them.
on a hot route.
Like
Yeah, instead of
12 or
yeah.
whatever it is now.
Yeah, so 2 to 4, those are your options. Basically, maybe a curl or an out, or a curl and a slant, or the combination of the three. Something like that and make that maybe a separate kind of option as opposed to hitting triangle for the hot route.
Michael Hamilton says the good dynasty logic is improved with the exception of the coaching carousel. Bad animations are way too scripted and gives the game a rigid feel. Ugly, the bugs and glitches are off the charts. Some have even been around since last year's game, which is unacceptable. Tough to argue with any of those. Let's talk about the bad first. Animations are way too scripted to give the game a rigid feel. I'm sure you guys have seen over the last since launch, but really the last 2 weeks, it seems like it's ramped up. Especially that one catching animation or failed catch where it's up high and they
Uh,
throw it backwards like a kid on a little Tykes hoop, or like a volleyball player trying to save the ball from going out of bounds. I understand why EA has it in there because there's situations where sometimes the ball will go off the fingertips, but just the way this plays out, it's not playing in the right spot, and the speed of how they take that ball backwards. It's is it the worst animation in the game? I say
and ha
yes.
and
I
half
would
the
say
time the
yes.
computer will catch it and your defender's out of position and the computer goes off and scores on that animation. But
It's
yet when the user has that animation, it's a drop 9 times out of 10.
right. Uh,
No, I think between the frequency and how, kind of over the top
mm.
it is, yeah, I would say it probably is the worst animation.
What about overall? He says that overall they're way too scripted, give the game a rigid feel.
To to me, I would disagree with that.
Mm.
To me, the animations are not as bad this year, in the sense that, um, you know, last year it would seem like you would catch a pass and like the first 2 or 3 steps, you couldn't control the receiver or the running
Mhm.
back or whoever has the ball. Whereas this year you can catch it, you can stop on a dime, you can, kind of do a head fake without using the right stick. You can do it all on the left stick and be able to get upfield a lot faster. Whereas in 25, it was not. You caught it and then had to, wait until the animation fully finished for you to be able to take control of them.
Yeah, I think
So
overall it feels more fluid, but that's just that one exception of the wide receiver catch. But overall, I think just 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 overall animations, I think just feel a lot better. I felt that almost instantly when we were playing online early on, during the early part of the game. I just feel like it just definitely has a different kind of feel to it as opposed to 25.
I will say, and maybe this kind of goes into that, but I don't know if you guys have noticed or not,
Mhm.
but if you have a highly rated linebacker, for example, that has high play recognition or something like that, it almost feels like he'll move into the right hole on his own. Like you try to move him to one hole and he goes into another or something,
Mm.
to where you know, it's almost like he's saying, no, that's not the right play. We're going to go over here and make the tackle this way, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, and which, to me, that's almost a good thing because again, if they're that highly rated and it is the right play to make, then let's make it happen. But again, I don't know how many people have seen that and agree with that, but it to me, I've got a highly rated linebacker at Buffalo, and definitely, I can tell the difference when I'm using him versus using another guy.
Maybe this is what he means by some of this. One, wide receivers not responding. That can make a game feel extremely rigid. I know EA says they air quote fixed it in one of their updates. I would say no, it's at least not completely fixed. So that definitely makes the game feel rigid. I wonder also if Michael might be referring to like on the physics-based gameplay now. There are instances where it plays out wonderfully. There are also instances where the players, and I don't know a better way to describe this. It's like a bunch of socially awkward people in a mosh pit. Like they kind of get next to each other, but they really don't know how to interact. There are times where they're still very much kind of like rag dolls, where they don't know how to interact with each other. There's no like, hey, I should kind of like maybe push you away, or hey, I should kind of interact with you. They just kind of stand there like rag dolls and kind of move against each other versus having a real football interaction. I wonder if that's some of what he means, because there are times where the animations look great. There are times where I'm like, ooh, that I could use a little work, especially like for example, when players collide into each other or they run into each other, especially pre-snap or right in the early stages of a play. Maybe that's some of what he's talking about because those seem like they're really frustrating when they interact, but they're not interacting properly.
I was gonna say it just seems like you see it more in 26 where there's groups of 4 to 5 players from both sides of the ball just in a cluster.
Mm.
You seem to in obviously a lot in the bubble screenplays, but you also see that on just down the field as well, a lot more than it was in 25 at least.
I will say, in terms of that, at least now you can kind of slip through the offensive line. Like if you go off of a
Mm.
guy's shoulder, you can actually slip through instead of being, Mario running behind the offensive line or something like that. That
Yeah.
still happens too, but it's you can at least slip off of a block or off of a tackle, if you get the right angle and have the right, player running the route or whatever. So.
And I
The other thing you mentioned about the catch, definitely that's not fixed. Happens at least a couple of times each game, at
mm,
least, to where I click on a guy and he does not try to make a catch at all. No
mm.
animation is triggered at all.
I also wonder if part of the issue when you talk about animations is like a clock, two hands always tell you the time. Where in this game, it seems like the hands can always make a catch, even if it's not realistic. There are times that a player will be standing there and his hands will be at his hips, but somehow they can move their hands just right to catch the ball. And it's like in real life, they couldn't make that catch. And it's usually a defender who's making it for an interception they probably shouldn't have made. I wonder if
Yeah,
that's part of what he's like. There should be a certain point where your hands or arms are at, they can't make a catch. But in the game,
I,
the defense especially can do that.
I had a defensive end catch the ball running away from the line, basically behind his back, catch it at his knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Because
yeah,
that would make it feel
definitely
scripted to somebody if you if
yeah,
you
for
you
sure.
see that cheap stuff happen. So I wonder if
Yeah,
that's what
for
he
sure.
means. I'm going to defend. I'm his defense lawyer. I think we just won the case on that one. Dustin, he says the good presentation. Is that the strongest point of the game? I'm not saying it's perfect, and I hate to have to clarify that, but overall, top to bottom, is that the best part of the game as we sit here on August 3rd? Okay, you can't say no. That means the answer is yes. You want to say something else, but you can't.
Yeah, I mean, but I also can't say that it's like perfect at all either. I
No,
mean,
no.
it's um
But as of right now,
it,
is it the
it,
best aspect of
in
the game?
in terms of improvement over 25, it is the best
Okay.
improvement. I will say that.
Okay. JB, agree?
Yeah, I think a lot of the in between quarters, like a lot of the stats and things they present are a lot better in
Mm.
terms of dynasty immersion, at least in my opinion.
Mm.
So those kind of presentation things there that are kind of network presentation things, I think they've done a better job of that. I think they've done a better job with doing some halftime stuff as well. I think they've done a better job making things pertinent to what is going on with the game. And now in terms of like the obviously the presentation with the entrances and things like that. Obviously, they've done a top-notch job, but there's also some details that are wildly missing that kind of baffle you as well. But I think overall, if I'm talking about a dynasty, a presentation of just kind of it being tied to what you're doing in your dynasty as a part of the, kind of network transitioning between quarters, I think that's been a lot improved in my opinion, at least from 25.
I say I think the in-game wipes and overlays I think are top notch. I do think there's some weird things where, like commentary, for example, like they pull up situations that aren't right. They
Yeah.
like especially in the pregame when you talk about they're playing Toledo, a top five team in the conference. I've never heard that mentioned my entire life, and I get that about every game where they talk about this. So I don't even know why it's in there. I don't know why they wrote it. It plays too often. For example, there's situations where, like say, second game of the year in a dynasty, they're not even in the same conference, and the pregame talk is, hey, these two teams are in control of their conference chase and the road to the playoff. Well, no kidding. If I went out, I suppose I am, but nobody's saying that with a MAC school in week one or week two. So there are some weird things. Sometimes you get the overlays lay on top of each other, which is a big no-no, but those happen in the game. Like some of the text is still way too small to read. That was a big complaint in 25. There were areas where it's way too small to read. So in 26, EA goes in and properly changes the font to give a rescan to make it look refreshed, look like a new football game, which they should. The problem is in some of those they didn't check to see if the font was smaller than it was in 25. So there's like for the news in the ticker or excuse me, news on the Dynasty homepage, that text underneath the big banner there is smaller than it was in 25. So it's
Mhm.
tougher to read. The names under players are still just as small and difficult to read. So there's things like overall it's very good. They still have a lot of work to do.
The stat update after a play is much improved, where they basically just kind of pop up with the player and the stats, and that's a nice sized font to be
When
able
you
to
when
read.
you get it,
Yeah, when you get it. Yeah.
it seems like it
Yeah.
fades away as the game goes on. I don't know I haven't not sat down and figured out the logic, but it's not ideal. But when it pops up though, it is awesome.
I
The
mean, I
problem is
wouldn't
it's not doing
hate to
every
see
play.
it. Yeah, I wouldn't hate to see it after every play. I mean,
I
why
think it should
not?
be every play personally.
Yeah.
Maybe not in a no huddle situation, but standard gameplay, I don't know why after every snap you wouldn't get that. Um,
In terms of presentation, I will say the first time I have seen it, I just got it in my most recent game in the Dynasty. It showed both my quarterback and my top receiver stats from the game all on one screen from the
hmm.
game before. Something that, kind of highlighting that they basically, ran away with the previous game or whatever. And it's not just one of them, it's both of them.
Hmm.
It's kind of the first time I've seen anything like that.
Have you seen the one that gives like the keys to the game? It's very rare, but I know
I saw it
I've had it once or
once.
twice, and I see people on Reddit have shown it shared once or twice because it's usually, did you know this was in the game?
I
And
saw
usually
it
the response is
once.
no, I think I've seen it once on my own and once on Reddit. Why that doesn't show, I'm assuming it must be shallow, so EA says don't do this too much, but that's a cool thing. That doesn't show
I
very
mean,
often.
the one time I saw it, it almost seemed like it made sense,
It did. I think it did my game as well.
it was once, and it might have been my first or second game of the season, so it was kind of hard to remember what was on there.
Right. Dustin says the bad lack of depth in Dynasty and Road to Glory. They slapped a few things in to improve the game modes, but are still left bare bones. It's tough to push back. I know they did quite a bit for Dynasty. I just don't know that EA has it tied in a bow very well. I feel like I'm still clueless on following the league as a whole or Dynasty as a whole. Whereas in real life, you know all the big storylines. In Dynasty, if you don't go digging for it, I don't think it's surfaced very well. And Road to Glory, it seems like if you didn't like the high school mode, you really didn't like what they did this year. So I mean,
Yeah, to
he's
me,
not wrong with that.
we kind of said the same thing before launch that it seemed to be the case. But yeah, with Road to Glory, it's high school and that's it, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Otherwise, and then as well, it wasn't very good in 25 and they didn't improve at all in 26 in terms
Hmm.
of, the week to week mechanic. And, again, I still complain you don't earn XP at all in the off season, whereas everybody else does.
Hmm.
To me, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I thought
Um,
high school was a lot of fun with Road to Glory this year, but then that's where the fun stopped. I think I've replayed high school more than I've replayed high school games more than I've done the college side of things on Road to Glory this year.
He says the gameplay. I could elaborate more, but that is literally how open-ended uh, ugly it is. It's one of those that I wish he had elaborated a little bit more, but you do see
I,
quite a few gameplay complaints. It's usually centered around the blocking up front.
Yeah, to me, and I understand a lot of people are complaining about that. I haven't had as much issue of it. To me, yes, you have less time pass blocking, but you shouldn't have a lot of time on every single play. Run blocking, I would definitely encourage everyone wait until the defense is fully set before you snap the ball. Otherwise, your blocker assignments are going to get changed. Yeah, you're still going to have a lot of like bad assignments or just complete whiffs to where the guy targets the wrong guy, but it's a lot improved if you do that. But overall, the gameplay to me, it's been fairly solid. Not perfect, lots of
Mm.
room for improvement, but it's been fairly solid. An improvement over 25, I would say.
A question on the pass blocking, Tommy. This is something that maybe we should make a tip video for. I don't know if everyone is aware that, and you can clarify afterwards. A significant number of passing plays have built-in pass protections. Last year, every play was basically what they call the base pass protection. This year, so it might, for example, you might call a pass play and it will give you, say, a half slide to the left. So that's probably fine if the pressure is coming from the left side, but when you hold down L1 and view pass protections, you'll see like, maybe a linebacker and a safety basically will come in untouched the way it currently is set up in your blocking. So you have to make some kind of adjustment. And what I've seen a lot of people recommend is just instantly on the pass play go base protection, which is L1, and then I believe left stick down, and then maybe tell your halfback to stay in and block if you're having trouble with pressure. Do you agree or disagree with why EA did that? Because it seems like I wonder if that's part of the problem with the complaints about pass protection this year not being there is because they're telling the linemen to go somewhere that may not want to go.
I can see that definitely.
Mm,
I will say that 9 times out of 10, when I've seen
mm,
the automatic pass protection,
mm,
it's one of two things. It's either the running back is already blocking, whether it's a block and
mm,
release or a full block, and then the offensive lineman will shift the other direction from the running back.
mm,
So, running back, you cover the right side, we'll cover the left,
mm,
sort of thing. So yeah, that's going to happen almost, by default.
mm,
The other side is if it's a play action rollout, then the offensive line will shift to the way that the rollout is occurring. So yeah, that's going to happen as well. That may leave the defensive end on the opposite side unblocked or something. That's possible to happen. I will say that definitely it on just like I said on running plays,
mm,
but on passing plays, wait until they get set, but then
mm.
also look to see who is targeting who. Is there
Right.
going to be a guy unblocked or something like that? Do you need to adjust it to where instead of shifting left, they shift right or something like that? Um, you know, yeah, it's something that it's a learning curve, but
Mm-hmm.
once you learn it, it's not a huge learning curve, but once you learn it, it's something that, does improve the pass blocking.
Because you can hold down L1 to view your pass protection, which will tell you basically, as you have it set up now, if this player blitzes, he's coming in untouched. But there's also left trigger plus, or I believe right stick left to show you blocking, which works on also. But then it shows you additional blocking versus the passing just shows you basically your offensive line. If you use that L2 and the right stick left, you'll see everybody, every blocking assignment, even the receivers. And you can use it on run plays as well. I would encourage people to do that pre-snap, but it goes back to early point we talked about. Sometimes you don't have the most time in the world,
I'll
so it's
start.
tough to do all that stuff.
The other side of that is
Mm,
that I've noticed that
mm,
there's times where you make an adjustment, whether it's the offensive line or call a
mm,
hot route. and then your quarterback is locked and you cannot make another hot route or another
Mm,
offensive line adjustment or whatever. So you may be thinking you're making it, but because he's still stuck on the previous audible or previous hot route, nothing else happens, sort of thing.
right.
The basically the animation of him, like the speech bubble or whatever it is over the top of his head, it still shows that he's locked into to calling that hot route or whatever. So that's very frustrating, and that may be something that's causing a lot of headache
Mm,
as well. But yeah, definitely, once you kind of learn how to handle those things, it is a lot better. But that doesn't
mm,
mean that EA doesn't need to fix it. They still need to
right.
fix some of those things for sure.
Mm. Lorenzo Jordan says, so far, I enjoy unlocking the rival trophies and the bowl game trophies. And next year, EA Sports needs to add more commentators and this time add sideline reporters. I think the trophy room has grown on me. It's better in game than when they marketed and showed it initially because it didn't clarify that you could view it by dynasty. I think the one issue there that emerges that if you make a dummy dynasty, they have their own profile that stays in there forever when you go look at your trophies. You can't go in and delete that out, which is
Yeah.
which is frustrating, especially if you have OCD. You don't want that one in there. You didn't do anything with that coach. You didn't play any games. You were just testing or looking at one thing. That coach exists and Dynasty exists forever in your trophy room.
Yep. Yeah. You wanted to earn it, and then you're not going to.
Yep. CK Streams has some cool new features buried underneath lack of general fixes I thought were coming. Gave the benefit of the doubt with last year being the first in a while, but starting to trend toward things never being fixed. Track record with EA's other games draws the biggest concern. I think that was the concern coming, especially with Madden. The perception is sometimes those issues, once they get mad and they stay there a long time. And now some of these issues that are in 26 should, at least on surface, appear to be easy fixes and did not get rectified, which I think brings up another question. How does EA determine what bugs to fix necessarily? Are they, they give the perception that they're always monitoring social media, always on Reddit. Is that really the best way to find stuff? I know it helps because we get a lot of stuff from those places, so I'm not criticizing those places. But if you don't live on there, it's very easy for things to get buried. It's easy for you to miss things on there. How do they figure out what bugs and issues to fix? I think they did a good job going after a lot of the big things, but the small things, like say, for example, you can't select Illinois as a pipeline. That was an issue in 25. It's also an issue in 26. That should be a very simple fix, but still in there. Not
Well,
aware,
and
didn't want to fix it. What is it? And that's
yeah,
just an
absolutely.
example.
No, it's completely warranted. Like you said, it's something that it's stuff that was wrong in 25. Need
Mm,
to fix those in 26. I think the challenge is that unless you're staying on Reddit throughout the day, you're not going to catch the small things that are, not high profile bugs or whatever. You're going
mm,
to miss a lot of the ones that should be fixed, but, don't get as much attention.
mm,
The Illinois issue, I wasn't even aware of it,
mm,
but my guess is that EA goes on once a week, once every few days, and looks at the top posts for the past
mm,
few days, and then that's it. But those smaller ones that don't get as much attention, don't get as much upvotes or whatever,
mm.
they don't. EA is going to miss those completely. And this again, that's just a guess. But
I think you're correct, though.
unless you truly have people that are trying and working to go out, and that's their job is to go out and find what the community is complaining about,
Mm.
then you're going to miss a lot of stuff. I mean, like that's the thing is I have a list of all these things. I wonder if my list is bigger than EA's. You know,
Right. And they had people in the
Probably
past who
is.
did this kind of stuff, but they couldn't wait to get rid of them. Does EA have an attention to detail problem? And I know and it's easy to say that, it comes to team details or uniforms. So we got to bring up one example of that. When this first went up on social media back on July 22nd, I thought it was fake. I mean, not to, throw shade at CFB Kings. I thought there's no way this is legit. Somebody photoshopped this. This isn't real. Uh, they said there's an error in 26 where Duke's Blue Devil logo is on Marshall's jerseys. And so when you zoom in, you see very much bottom of their neck. It is the Blue Devil head. And I believe it's supposed to be the Marshall head,
it
which is
is.
fine.
Yep.
But I thought, okay, this is fake. Somebody's making this for attention. There's no way it's in the game like this. So I fired up the game. It's not fake, guys. This is legitimately in the game like this.
Well, and honestly, this was discovered, I think, like within the first few days of launch. So it's
Mm,
not just something that just, came out of nowhere or anything like that. EA has had time to fix that. That should be a very, very simple fix. Um, EA should have had that fixed in one of the prior patches, in my opinion.
Do you think we got to wait till the first big roster update when they add those missing uniforms for schools? Because we don't have, I believe we don't have, Georgia Tech's new uniforms are not in there. I know there's some other schools. We don't have all of Boston College's alternates that they revealed. I feel like
If it
those are
ain't by
coming.
then, I mean,
Yeah, if you don't include it in that, then that's
It's never
that's
happening.
just yeah. To me,
stupid.
that's
Yeah.
awful if they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it should be fixed before then. And if I were a Marshall athletic director or whatever, I would be telling EA, you got to fix this. That's not our brand. But
They're lucky. Of course, we don't know what Marshall has or has not said, or if they're aware or have been communicated with about this. But my initial thought was if I were to some school and saw this, the first email or call would have words such as "What flunky is working on this?" Because I would be livid. That is my brand. That is my school, and you messed it up big time. Here's the weird thing: is that I can tell myself I can see how they did this because if you close one eye and squint with the other, that Blue Devil head and the Marshall, if you put this gray and white, very similar. If you, like I said, close one eye, squint with the other, turn the lights off, horns on the side, say it's the same logo. What system are they using where that could get pulled in like that? Are these file names not named, Duke head or Marshall, Thurning Herd head? Like, what is it where you're just grabbing random, you know, oh, it's a face and horns. It's right. Put it on there. That's
Yeah.
that's where
yeah,
I'm very confused on what the system is behind the scenes that it even
yeah,
got
there's
pulled in there.
other than them both having horns on a head, there's no
No,
relationship
they're
between
not.
Marshall and Duke that should cause this.
And I say when I see how they did that, I'm being sarcastic. I mean,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
there's
no,
no way they did it like that. But how?
no, of
And so this
course.
also shows you that when we had that 25 teaser trailer, how they were scanning uniforms. Obviously, the new uniforms for Marshall, they weren't getting scanned; these were getting built. So that's how you get this mistake. Because I feel
Hmm.
very certain that Nike did not send them uniforms with the Duke head on it. I could be wrong. I feel like that probably didn't happen here. So this was built by somebody big time boo boo.
Could be a rogue designer that's a Duke fan too. Let's see if anybody notices this.
Isn't there the belief in Dynasty they always end up good? Like, is there somebody on the team that's a Duke fan? So they're really just, I mean, they're really trying to make him good. Like, they're so good, even Marshall wants to be Duke in the game now.
Yeah, exactly.
So does EA have an attention to detail issue? To go back to our previous question, um, let's say, for example, like the XP bug, you're not really getting XP when you have it on manual adjustment. How are some of these things getting by? I mean, Tommy, you talk about some of the issues that you've seen in the game that you think if somebody just plays it for a reasonable amount of time would see it.
Yes. I think part of the problem is that they're testing specific scenarios during QA,
Hmm.
and outside of those scenarios, they're ignoring everything else. Which that's fine if that's your role, but you also need to have people that are just playing the game to see what the end user experience is like and does this meet everything. The other side of it, to me, it's a huge fall or it's a huge issue that they dropped the ball that I'm in IT. I develop automation and testing and things like
Hmm.
that. As a developer, you have, unit tests that are supposed to go out and see does this code change work as you expect it. Okay, I'm not going to say it's going to test the physics and stuff like that. Yes, you could probably do that, but more of a test 100 simulated dynasties and see what the outliers are. See,
Hmm.
do teams earn XP? Do teams end up with 50 players on every roster or something like that? Are there 100 recruits that go unsigned at the end of the offseason? Whatever it is, have unit tests for those that are specifically
Hmm.
looking for those scenarios, especially if you introduce brand new features, have unit tests
Hmm.
that test is that feature working correctly?
And this isn't a new issue. I mean, we had pages of spreadsheets of missing details on 14 and 13 and 12, going back. So this is not a new thing for college football. They've, it's gotten worse, but we
Right.
and we and we know why. We can pinpoint why in a couple of instances of why it's gotten worse because of a couple of changes that they've made, but it's always been like this, but yet at the same time, it's just crazy that it's never gotten better.
Let's talk about the testing aspect. This is something that was on Reddit about 3 weeks ago. Take with a grain of salt. I do think there's some legitimacy to this, but again, I want to say take with a grain of salt. This gentleman in this thread, people said, how do they not test their games? And he came in and said that I'm going to paraphrase this, EA cuts QA on a yearly basis. He says that he used to work at their Baton Rouge facility, as did his partner. She left and became a full-time employee, not a contractor. She no longer works there. However, he says back in 14, most of the game uh, tested by contractors in Baton Rouge, and that I believe to be correct. That's the way I understood it back at that time. He said it wasn't perfect or anything, but most of them at least knew what college football or at least football was. He says then it got shifted to the UK as Baton Rouge then started to work on other projects, eventually going to Apex Legends. He said they a while ago cut the UK QA testers entirely. Now it's in Romania and a brand new studio in Colombia. And he says eventually Romania will be replaced by entirely by Colombia. His issue or concern is he says that he must have a context still there to know this. If you take this at face value, the amount of bugs found by the QA team in Romania is laughably low compared to the number turned in by the UK team, which is already lower than the Baton Rouge team used to submit. In summation, he says this game is being tested by a bunch of people who make almost nothing and who have no idea what American football is supposed to look like. He does add in here, one last little jab here, because I don't want to let the EA devs off the hook here. The amount of sheer incompetent people who work on these games would honestly blow your mind. Lots of times they won't submit bills to QA until less than a week before ship dates, and it completely wrecks QA's ability to do their job. That one, I would think they'd have earlier deadlines than that, but I don't know that. But I will take him at face value, and if people don't want to believe it, that's fine. I'm not going to say you should, but also I don't think he's pulling this out of thin air either.
Well, ship date, it wasn't a ship date usually roughly within a month before release
That's the way I
to re
listed it in the past was about a month, so that way you can do in-house testing certification, and then Microsoft Sony would have their time with it as well. But I don't know if things have changed. That was over a decade ago.
just
Yeah,
blows
but
my
at the
mind.
same
It's people that don't know the sport and that you're entrusting this in. It just blows my mind. That and you know and people have been ragging on Madden for regressing over these last and hey, even FIFA, well, now FC or whatever the hell you call it. But I mean, all of these games have been regressing in terms of quality, and right there's your answer.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the little things. These are the little things that no somebody from Romania is not going to know, how football is supposed to be played and that kind of thing. Um, to me, yes, you could use a team from Romania, for example, to just look for break fixes for the
Mm-hmm.
game crashes when you do X, Y, and Z or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have the right team that's doing QA for the experience, not just
Mm-hmm.
does it break, but does it work as we designed it to work? Because there's a lot of that this year, especially that no, it doesn't work as kind of they designed it to be.
And I would say even if their goal was looking for crashes, they didn't do a very good job because that's been a big issue with EA post-release. A lot of people having Dynasty and Road to Glory crashes.
Yep.
And I do think
Yeah,
his point is when they started going to the testing center in Baton Rouge, I know they've made some good hires out of there. They have people who kind of rose through that and now work at EA who I think have done a very good job. I do think though when they started to go to that, that's when I personally noticed back on the PS3 days, more bugs and issues emerging through. Because I think not everyone there, yeah, I want to get into games. Then you start doing testing. You're like, this kind of sucks. I don't really want to do this part of it. I want to make the cool stuff. Um, so I do think it's interesting that he mentioned that yeah, we had issues, but it's
Well,
nothing like what you're getting now. And I
it's
tend to think that I
also,
agree with that way it's played out.
I mean, it's also the same where they put their reliance on influencers. I mean, influencers aren't going to know details of
Hmm.
certain things, unless they're a hardcore college fan. But I think a lot of those people were more hardcore Madden fans than college fans, so they're not going to recognize a lot of these things either. And that was another kind of level of things when, we used to go down there. We would catch a lot of things. We'd have pages of notes. The devs would be afraid to meet with us sometimes because we had so much to say. Where now I don't think influencers are they're not looking at this in any detail. They're just looking to get clicks and views. So they're
And they
they're
also
not
don't get
looking at
much time with it either.
exactly.
EA
Yeah.
restricts them pre-release as well.
As far as the influencers go, I mean, I can give them a little bit of a pass that and presumably they don't get to travel down to the studio like we did before. However, my wonder is, do they get time with early builds, whether it's in, March, April, or May, June, or whatever? Do they get time with early builds to be able to give some feedback? To me, if EA is not doing something like that, then they are really dropping the ball. We were able to go down January. We kind of get pitched what some of their ideas are. March, April, you get hands-on with the game, and then May, you have kind of a final build to be able to play the game. To me, I don't know how much EA took away from that. I know we took a lot away, and we gave a lot of feedback from those events. But at the same time, if they're not doing something like that today, then that's just going to lead to more issues that we're
Mm.
seeing today.
And
And
I,
to JB's point, do do these guys care about the game as much as they as some of the past community did? I mean, yes, there's some that are 100% college football, but then there's a lot of guys that are, their attention is divided, and they're not as focused on college football once Madden releases. So, here you've got three guys that do a free podcast that have been doing it for 15 years, and you would think that these types of people would be your audience for trying to improve the game.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw this post a couple weeks ago, it was like, well, this just makes a lot of sense because this is, I just as I just said, this is EA as a whole.
mhm.
Um, not it's EA Sports as a whole. I wouldn't say EA as a whole, but I mean, I don't know. Battlefield's kind of gone downhill too. 2042 was
Mm.
disastrous, but six is looking very good. So hopefully that's going in a different direction. But EA Sports as a whole, yes, we're seeing the collective, you know, you rarely saw the Madden people get that riled up, but then like the last 3 to 4 years, you see a
Mm.
lot of just disappointment on things that you didn't quite see as much as you used to back in.
And part of it is, your QA is kind of your end all be all. And if they're not investing in it, it's not the influencer job. It's not essentially the community guys. Kind of thing in the past, they found ways to do it on the cheap. And now it's more,
Cheaper.
how can we get even cheaper than,
Yeah.
how can we get cheaper than free? So now you're getting reduction of quality, if this proves to be correct. But I will say you can go look at the credits of the game, and you do see a lot of foreign-based studios mentioned. It does not say they're QA necessarily, but it makes you wonder, okay, what are they working on in these other countries that don't have this sport? Now, granted, maybe they can work on art assets, animations. I'm old-fashioned, so even when they started to move the testing center more to LSU, my thought was, if you can't have the boss of the game go in there and chew somebody's backside when some issues make it through, it's easier for more issues than to get through. But I'm old fashioned like that. There's some things I don't think you can outsource. Some things very much got to be in the building so the boss can go in and raise hell. A Zoom call doesn't do it. A meanly worded email does not do it. Sometimes they got to see the boss and know, if I mess up, I don't want him walking in here or her walking in here chewing me out. And it feels like if you are now having your QA go to Romania and Colombia, you're not worried about your boss. You may not know who your ultimate boss is at some point.
Well, it just seems like these are also people that are like back then, in Baton Rouge, they had contractors. They may not have been making a ton. It sounds like these people are just randomly coming in. They're not even a contractor, that they might be doing it for free or for some kind of perk. I don't know. It just seems like that there's like no incentive to do a good job here because
I
you're
would
not
guess
being
full
caught.
time, but it costs less than what it would cost to have it done here in the States. I
Yeah.
could be
Yeah,
wrong
for
on that,
sure.
but
For
that's my
sure.
take on this.
Yeah. Um, the other side is, like you mentioned, moving it to Baton Rouge, moving it to Romania, Colombia, wherever else. To me, if you can't go and shoulder surf somebody that is developing it and does telling you how the game is supposed to
Hmm.
work, then you lose a lot of that
Hmm.
desire to do it right or anything like that. It's a matter of, can you actually say, yes, this is working as it was supposed to, or it just doesn't break, that
Hmm.
kind of thing. The other side of that is, there's been a big drive, let's say 10 years ago, to move all IT support offshore. And then you start to find out and realize that offshore people don't care about the product they're working on. They're
Right.
just there to make money, and that's
It's a
it.
job.
It's a job, and that's
Hmm.
fine.
Hmm.
Lots of people do that every day. That's no
Right.
problem. But at the same time, you want people who are invested in the success of the company they're working for, not just some third party company that, well, they'll go find another contract somewhere else. You know, it to me, you want people who are invested in delivering a good product.
And I would say, even with the developing Orlando, for example, there's probably some people who are massive, massive eligible fans, but can't code for a lick in their lives. And there's probably conversely people who can code like no other, but have zero clue about the game of football. And like you said, they can get together and talk and get these things hashed out in person to figure out, okay, football fan A tells designer B, and they can work it out. QA
Absolutely. No,
over halfway around the world, like you said, how's it supposed to be? I don't know. Looks good to me. We got some crashes. We got some things figured out.
well, and the other side of that is you, depending upon how their work schedule is, how much time do they actually have overlap wise to be
Right.
able to actually communicate? That's one of the big issues. I've got team members that are based in China and India and UK, and even the guy in the UK, I only get half a day with. So if I don't
Mhm.
have fun time in that half a day, then there's, you know, you're not going to get to communicate. So you're going to have to wait until the next day and hope that both of you find time to be able to do something there. So, it's I don't know the right answer. Obviously, EA is trying to save money. Everyone in this world is trying to save money,
Right.
but at the same time, you're going to lose money by hurting the product by not delivering a
Mhm.
good game at the end.
But you're also viewing it the wrong way. Your previous point. Yeah, you view it as less time to interact. They view it as you now. You can say they're working around the clock on it, having people located around the world. You got to learn how to spin that, Tommy.
Pardon me.
That's all right. Let's get back to the community feedback here. I say CK really got us off the path on that one. I hope he enjoys that answer. Cody Vincent says, my pulse meter does not work during away games. It doesn't vibrate at all. Have you heard of anybody else having this issue? I don't think so, but I'm not so sure. Me personally, after a while, as I ignore some of that stuff. That's why, I mentioned earlier about already getting the notification on low play clock. Maybe I'm ignoring it. Have you guys heard anything like this issue?
No, I will say I played Buffalo at LSU, and the first couple of snaps it was really intense, but then I had some good drive that kind of quieted the crowd, and then they never came back at all. Like obviously it was a back and forth game, but they never were as excited.
Mhm.
I mean, granted, I guess in real life that would probably happen if you have a Buffalo team that's coming in and giving LSU a better game than they were expected to, then that can kind of quiet the game as well. So yeah, I haven't seen the specific issues he's talking about though.
Jagnol says the first title update felt like a day one patch. No meaningful update so far. I still play the game and have fun with it, but it's still unfinished. Uh, Tough to argue against that. I
$100% agreed.
think the take we get is we all enjoy the game, but we also recognize all the issues. And a point I wanted to bring up earlier, if you're somebody who had run into, just for example, where at launch you couldn't snap the ball at times, you couldn't get the play art to go away, you couldn't kick field goals, you're getting game crashes in Dynasty and Road to Glory, you run into the rare issue where your recruiting board disappears, what would your opinion of this game be? If you run into three of those issues, what would your opinion of the game be? I think the opinion would be, well, this game stinks. They either didn't test it, or it's broke, or I'm not enjoying it. Um, so
Does
it's one of
EA
those.
even play their game?
It's one of those. I think the user enjoyment comes down to, I'm not exclusively, but a lot of it comes down to how many of the issues you're running into and how big of issues you run into. I have not had any crashes, but I do understand from a user standpoint, crashes and disconnects are about the most frustrating thing you can get. Like especially if you get a game about finished that you have won, and you get in that fourth quarter, which I happened in 25, and all of a sudden mid fourth quarter, say connections lost. That makes me not want to play it because you can't trust it.
Yeah.
So I understand Jagnol's point completely. And I don't even know what issues he has personally. But I do see his point where the game's good, but it has a lot of work to go. Coach Gunn says it's better than 25, but the price of 70 combined with small upgrades and massive amount of bugs make this a lower rated title for me, 5 out of 10. All of the upgrades could have been a title update. No huge, massive upgrade to justify the money. Thoughts on that, guys?
I mean, I would probably agree. To me, these are kind of features that they could have done as an off cycle, like just have you keep the same gameplay, but then have some of the dynasty adjustments or something like that. Have like a DLC in between, every other year development or something like
Mhm.
that. And again, obviously not have the same $70 price, but at the same time, it's not anything that just blows me away in terms of their updates. The presentation is huge, a big leap forward, but at the same time, that's something that, again, it doesn't justify the $70. I get plenty of hours with it, so, I get my $70 worth. There's no
Mm.
doubt about that. But at the same time, I don't feel as good about getting that much time with the game if it delivers a poor product.
Mm.
Yeah, I was like, what is it? What what was the back of the box feature this year?
Remember the first thing they
Adding
showed was
coaches.
the playbooks. The
Yeah,
expansive playbooks was one of the things I hyped up initially.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I
I
don't think,
mean,
as we said then, that to the average person does that mean anything? I say no. It's a
I,
good
I,
feature, but I don't
yeah.
think the average person cares about that.
I talked with a guy at work that is a huge Dynasty guy. He doesn't play online or anything, but he plays tons of Dynasty. And I told him, yeah, they added, 2,800 plays. He goes, the playbooks were too big as they were. And to a point, I mean, he's
He's right.
right.
He's not
I
wrong.
mean, I love all the plays they added, and I've used probably, half of them so far or whatever. But at the same time, to the average fan, they don't that just waters down what they should be focusing on in their opinion.
Hmm. And they may not even look at it. They might just pick whatever team they pick and use their playbook, and they don't go any further than that.
100%, yeah.
Not that EA shouldn't touch them, but it's not a marketing feature, like JB was alluding to there.
Yep.
But just to play devil's advocate, though, weren't most of the community requests all make this feature bigger, make this feature better? What's missing in terms of brand new feature? Now, granted, Road to Glory probably needs a whole revamp, so that would be a new feature. But I mean, if you're just on its face, just
I
playing
mean,
devil's
if you
advocate, is there
over
anything that they is completely, totally missing as a feature?
I was
I
going to say
struggle to
about the
think.
Road to Glory, if you could have overhauled it to where
Mm.
college is just as enjoyable as high school, then you could have almost said it's like a whole new thing.
Right.
Um, I don't know.
That's where I get leery
Yeah, I
when
mean,
people say that, they just updated or just, like that's what we asked for. When you
Yeah.
can say EA didn't do a good job, now that I will sign off on with. Like maybe they could have done better in certain aspects, but I don't know what's the massively missing at this rate. I don't know that there is.
I would agree with that statement. I mean, there's nothing that just jumps to mind that, oh my God, I can't believe they haven't added this. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's some stuff that we've always requested, and there's
Mm-hmm.
still stuff in the wish list tourney that has never been touched on. But at the same time, there's nothing that just says, EA completely ignored the community on this one feature.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I guess I would say that, got a lot of noise this year is the player equipment and, stuff like
Yes.
that. But at the same time, that's not a back of the box feature either.
And that's
So,
just making deeper what they already had. That still
right.
isn't a missing feature.
Agreed.
But I agree with you. AJ says to me, the realism and football logic is off the charts. Gone are the days where you can simply arcade your way to wins. Now you have to scheme. Still some bugs and slider changes needed. Computer field goal example there. But overall, I'm loving it more every time I play. I do think EA is trying to make it to more, football knowledge and skill matters. I think they're also trying to make it where ratings matter to where I think that's some of the issue people have with running the ball is that they're expecting to run the ball. Maybe a team is 10 points better than them. I think when you do a talent gap, it's even tougher to run the way it is. Whereas I think if you have a good team or good running back, you have a more likely success. So I think EA is doing a good job there, and that's their goal. So I mean, I do want to give them credit in those regards. I mean, would you guys agree with AJ's point there?
I saw a missed field goal last night.
I've seen
Hit
quite a
the
few this year.
it hit the upright. It was like a 50 yarder though, but yeah, like I'm struggling with my team because I think they're slow because they're just getting beat all the time. I have a pretty good wide receiver. He's fast, but he never gets open down the field. But the run game's where I definitely see it because I think my offensive line is terrible outside maybe my left tackle. And so it's very hard to it was very easy to run tosses last year and not with this team. So it is definitely kind of showing, I should maybe hop on with an Oregon, see how easy it is to do a toss sweep with the running back and seeing if I could have the same success because if I do, then it does make sense because this Wyoming is 69s across the board. So with a very crappy line but also they're getting beat a lot on the speed game just because
Mhm.
just even from like just simple slant routes and simple drag routes you know the linebackers are hard to kind of catch up with the other teams they're playing against. So I do notice that where playing online early on with even teams, you kind of saw ebbs and flows where I'm just getting completely stomped because I'm an inferior team right now.
To me, yeah, the EA is definitely leaning into the football logic and trying to make it
Mm.
more true to life. The problem is that they're not training the player up
Mm.
as they do that. They're
Right.
adding these features that are really in depth that are, you know, like for example, the match coverage alignment. How do they decide who they're going to match to? Depending upon the receiver releases this way or goes deep or whatever. I understand that a little bit, but
Mm.
not nearly as much as some other guys. And so you watch these guys' videos on YouTube that it's super deep. Your everyday player is not going to do that. They're not going to
No.
watch that video. They're not going to understand what it means. They're going to see a zone, what appears to be a zone, even though it says match, it appears to be a zone. And so they're going to just assume that it plays the same way as cover three sky or whatever. Um, to me, EA needs to do a much better job
Mm.
of if they're going to lean into these, they need to also lean into teaching players what these all mean. And hey, we
Mm.
added this because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm not talking about blogs, I'm not talking about videos, I'm
Mm.
talking about in the game. Make it right there in front of
Mm.
you that says, hey, we see you are struggling with X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Here's a tutorial. Why don't you go play this in the game?
Mm. College football enthusiast says good dynasty improved, fun, challenging recruiting rebuild, all American level is fun. I agree with him there. I don't know how the Heisman guys do it. Bad dynasty scheduling, played the same road conference games multiple seasons. Heisman level has teleporting, glitchy, bug-like freezing issues, ugly patching. They fix one thing, two things get worse. Uh, Tough to argue against any of those points there.
Hmm. Yeah, I liked the little things that they've done with recruiting this year. I've liked it so far. Obviously, we're still in the middle of the first season to see how everything plays out is going to be maybe a different story, but I think overall, especially with like I think I have a 2-star team, maybe 1.5-star team, and I've got like a handful of 4 stars, but never could touch a 5-star. So I think it's been pretty realistic. I like some of the little tweaks and things they've done as well. So I definitely agree with the good there, and obviously we all know about the ugly there because we've seen
Mm.
that too many times.
I mean, yeah, like you said, there's really nothing to argue against. I haven't played it all on Heisman. I've kind of always settled into All American and
Mm.
adjust the sliders to make that work a little bit. But yeah, definitely in the patching. Perfect example is in their first post-launch patch, they said they fixed like one or two small things, and then everybody complains. All of a sudden, everybody's now complaining that the run blocking is 10 times worse, and the
Mm.
linebackers are, super linebackers. Again, that's perfect example. If you cannot get those small things right, if you release stuff in a patch that is totally unrelated and clearly a bug, that's bad. That's,
Mm.
you're going the wrong direction.
Speaking of recruiting, Tommy, that's I have like four questions I want to ask here. First off, for recruiting, you and Steelers fan in our Gaming Tailgate Discord were talking about some issues that you guys have seen. And I think they exist in 25, to where there's a lot of good players who don't go anywhere because of the way EA has the computer pursue or not pursue them or not offer scholarships. Um, I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you remember some of those things that are kind of missing that would really help make recruiting more realistic?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at a lower tier school's
Mm.
class, they'll target like five 3 stars, zero 4 stars. Even a
Mm.
2-star team, they're only targeting a small number of improved talent to what their current team has. They're
Mm.
targeting 2 stars and 1 stars. To me, 1 stars almost shouldn't even be in the game. I know
No,
they're there
they're
in real life, but there's no point in having them in the
they're
game
too
today.
awful.
Yeah, they're awful.
Mm.
Um, to me, small schools should be reaching up for 3 stars, 4 stars early in the season. If they realize that they're not going to sign them, then they pull
Mm.
away early and backfill with 2 stars if they need to or whatever. Um, the bigger issue, like you were talking about,
Mm.
in especially this year, the transfer portal, you'll have guys that come in that are locked into top eight, top five. They get zero offers. And so because nobody outside of those top five
Mm.
or top eight can offer them, they never sign anywhere. So they end up just disappearing into the off season
Mm,
and are gone forever. Whereas to me, it should be okay, fine. Week one, they are top five, top eight, or whatever. But then if they don't get any offers out of those top
mm,
schools, then they open it wide open and let some of these other schools that really need them be able to recruit them. I'm not saying you have a one-star or two-star school start signing a bunch of four-star transfers, but that does happen in real life. I
mm,
mean, Arkansas State has, really good transfers that come from higher rated schools. Now, they fell for a reason, one reason or another, but at the
mm.
same time, it's possible. So, to me, I understand where EA is going with locking it down top five, top eight in the off season in the transfer portal. But if they never open it up, then they're gone completely. There's nobody else that can offer them a scholarship. So, you know, they're gone.
Yeah, because
To me,
in real life, isn't it? That's a top five, top eight is because probably they've had contact with those schools. But
They got those offers.
in a video game, there's not that aspect.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Again, like I said, week one, fine, have it locked down. But if they don't get those offers early, then they need to open it up so that people can, come and find them.
It's part of the problem that and maybe I'm a day late to the party on this one. Part of the issue is the pipeline system. I know we view it as a boost for each of the existing schools, but I think EA is using it behind the scenes too. That's how they populate who the school, or excuse me, who the recruits are interested in. Even if they have no offers, all they're really doing is based on their location. It's picking those schools that have those pipelines. For example, you might see a three-star that you're going after and it takes zero work to get number one on their board. But the number two is Georgia and Mississippi and Alabama. It's all like the big players that exist within their pipeline, but those schools didn't go after them. So it tells me those schools are not going after players based on need very much at all. That there's entire massive swaths of players that are formulating their top eight, five, etc., based on the pipeline system. I mean, I hope that makes sense what I'm saying. Like, I think it's a backfill system and not a proactive system. I hope that makes sense. If not, I can try to explain it better. But I think there's a flaw with the pipeline system that it's a EA's easy way of populating interest for these players. But then that goes into your point that we had a minute ago, where then those schools really don't go after them.
Yeah, I mean, I've not studied the pipelines enough to say yes, that's 100% exactly how schools are filling them. I do know that you can kind of take a look at who are in the initial top 10 to
Mm-hmm.
see what type of player they're, what type of team they're going to end up signing with ultimately. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if they're a four-star and they have mixed in some one-star and two-star schools in their top 10, then
Mm-hmm.
odds are you have a better shot at signing them than if it's all Georgia and Ohio State
Mm-hmm.
and Oregon. You're not going to sign that guy almost,
Right. Right.
almost never. Um, so yeah, I mean, to some point, to me, the pipelines don't do much of anything. I'm not sure. I kind of pretend that they do when I'm
Right.
targeting recruiting, but I don't
Right.
know that I actually get any bonus or boost by having a top, a higher pipeline with
Mm.
that state. So yeah, to me, I can understand starting the recruiting season with some of those guidelines. Like, yes, you're going to focus on pipelines first or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time middle of the season starts and you don't have your board, you don't haven't signed as many people as you need, or you haven't signed that starting quarterback for next year or whatever it is, you need to start opening it up and looking at those guys that don't have as much attention. That's the way we as humans do it. I need to fill out the rest of my
Mm-hmm.
board, so let me go and look for some guys that aren't getting the attention that they,
Right.
should be getting. So
I would say just what hit me on 26 was, and it's probably the same in 25, is that the players I'm going after, like I'm going after ones in my pipeline. Like you said, I don't know if it means anything, but to me it feels good. Like it makes sense that I should go after guys in my pipeline. And Troy was leading or high on their board for like massive swaths of these certain players. Well, then it finally hit me. Well, it's only because that's in their pipeline. They have no interest in them. It's just the computer auto-filling their list. It's not based on any need or based on any position or anything. It's just EA quick and easy way of populating the list. It made no sense for Troy to be interested in the swath of players that they were when I was going through my dynasty. Like, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, This is backwards. They just took the cheap and easy way out, which I get. It's difficult, but that's probably why we have so many players who don't get signed. That's why you have so many teams that don't get better because they're not actually looking at positions of need or looking at player ratings or looking at player archetypes. Uh, just a theory. Maybe I'm way off on it. And we should mention there's a bug with the recruiting, and you and I have talked about this in the Discord. If you look at the player, in recruiting, you're looking at the player card. The meter at the top can be wrong. It will tell you that they're in the top five stage, but when you look at the schools down below, they very much, say, for example, have still in the top 10. So you cannot go by that meter at the top. You have to go by, like you pointed out, on the left side. Another fun bug in the game, which I've not seen a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. It's the small things that add up, especially when there's thousands of small things that
Right.
continue to add up, you know.
Jack State 66 says, I hate being stuck in one play due to stadium pulse. Teams have silent counts and checks for road games. We mentioned that earlier. That's a good point that how do you count out the real game, versus real life versus the video game aspect. Jacoby says the game is good. And duality of man here, we go right into Slain Charlie says the game is trash compared to last year. But some of us already knew that would be the case. But hey, they put drone shows in the pregame that everyone skips after the first time watching it. He has a point where the game is very 25 and 26. They put a lot of emphasis in that early pregame presentation stuff, which I get it. Um, that's what draws a lot of fans in. Maybe it's almost too much in some regard. I hate to say that. I don't want to see that stuff go, but I do see his point. Jay Cruz says coaching changes and offers still make no sense. Recruiting is way too easy. Just offer any 3-star with no offers. He's not wrong on that, especially if you're building up a small program. Just go after 3 stars. There'll be a lot out there you can get.
Yep.
Hell, I was lucky with some 4 stars with Wyoming that nobody's gone after. I can say that now because there's no users in the dynasty that are they're all locked out now. So
I'll keep that in mind for next season. Thank you, JB. Wedge says the good. It definitely takes more football knowledge this year. Bad jump ball still a little crazy for receivers and ultimate team. I'm not asking for more interceptions. I'm asking for more incompletions. I agree with that completely. We'll come back to that. Ugly features sometimes flat out don't work, like O-line blocking adjustments. The one thing I've seen a lot of people talk about, we noticed this kind of right off the bat, the robo quarterback, they are just insanely accurate this year. You have to do slider work to get a more realistic number. Otherwise, they are like Super Bowl Tom Brady. Like every pass is on the money, and they're passing at 90 to 100% clip,
With
literally
the
in some games.
low-rated quarterbacks.
That's right. That's right. Ugly. Some features don't work. Like he says, the O-line blocking adjustments. It's. I'm sure you guys have seen this debate online. People say, blocking is awful. Others say, no, it's fine. You got to look at your play art. There's probably some truth to both sides to that. I know when I was playing a game last night, if the blocker had taken the guy who was coming at him, I would have had a first down. Instead, it's one thing if they would go upfield and ignore the guy. I can see that. Maybe he's trying to get to the next level. I can live with that. The worst is when then they go ahead and then like they somehow magically know to go backwards to a different player beside it. Instead of no eyes, no picks, maybe we need no eyes, no block attempt. Or you need to, if you have eyes on them, you got to block them. I think that would make more sense and solve some of these issues. I'm sure, I know on Reddit today, I was looking, somebody was talking about the blocking, and sure enough, Lyman did the same thing. You think he's going after this guy coming at him, but magically he knows to turn around and go backwards for someone who he shouldn't have even seen. So there are definitely some O-line adjustments or issues that need work.
Yeah, I mean, some of it you can excuse and say, oh, well, he's a low-rated offensive lineman or he's not as aware. But no,
Mhm.
when they completely turn around in the middle of the hole or when it's one thing to whiff a block, it's another thing to never even attempt the right block.
Right.
That to me, yeah, it's something that they got to work on. And, I can excuse some of it. Like I said, I'm having a pretty good time with blocking.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I also know there's a lot of issues with blocking.
Is this partly they don't know how to do wrong right? Is in there's not
That
enough
that's
like
always
failed
been a
animations. It's like just waltz by. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to block you, so just come on in.
that's always been a debate. I mean, definitely back in the old school days, that was always kind of, an excuse that it's hard to do wrong right.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, now just have them do wrong by making a bad animation.
Mm-hmm.
They whiff the block or they trip over their own feet or something like that. I mean, make it to where, they at least were attempting to do right. They're just not skilled enough to do it.
Right. BZ Bone says the injuries every play when the game was in the final 2 minutes is awesome. This is what we talked about last show. Did EA add in intentional injuries? I don't think they did, but he has a point there that it seems like there's a lot of injuries late in games that really don't make sense.
Yeah, especially on a QB kneel. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've seen that.
yeah, that should never happen.
And finally, Ktro 1994, K says coaching carousel is absolute trash. Bring back the Z14's model. It was perfect. Tough to refute that. We talked about it earlier, but it was kind of disheartening to hear EA's take on it that they thought that this method is better than 14's just because of the
Yeah.
experience when the result is way worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Tommy, you had a couple things that you said before the show. If the community doesn't get to it, you got a list. All right, let's hear your list.
Yeah, I'll do this rapid fire because there's actually more than a couple. Um, One big one is you cannot upgrade players in certain position or certain traits for them to be able to unlock abilities. Perfect example is you'll have receivers that need to have a certain spec catch rating, but you cannot upgrade their spec catch. All you can do is upgrade their catch and their carry. There's a list actually by on Reddit, Ginger underscore snap 1603. He outlines everything over all positions and kind of outlines all the different abilities that can never be unlocked. And there's a lot of them.
A lot
On
is in
that
five or a
same
lot is in
note,
20? Just curiosity's sake.
I would say a lot is in probably greater than 10. Like probably even like close to 20 that abilities that can never be unlocked because you can't upgrade those particular
Hmm.
traits. Kind of along the same note, raw strength offensive line is way too expensive. I think everybody knows that, or at least a
Hmm.
lot of people have heard that. It costs 8 points to upgrade awareness, whereas for anyone else it costs 2 points. Um, to me, it's really bad. I mean,
Is
like
that bug or
basically,
intentional?
uh, I would hope it's not intentional. I hope it's a bug that EA plans to patch. I would think they could do that with a server side patch, but who knows? They haven't done
Hmm.
it so far.
Is that
But
attribute
no,
highly tied to their overall, and that's why they do it that way?
well, it's all of their ratings though. Like for their blocking abilities, even though they're low rated blocking abilities, it takes 10 or 12 points to bump up one point on the blocking abilities.
Hmm.
So to me, it can't be intentional. If it is, then that's really bad. It's to the point that I would suggest if you do sign a raw strength OL, plan to try to move them to a different offensive line position so that hopefully their archetype changes when you
Hmm.
move them. So but it's really bad. If you can avoid signing them altogether, to me, that's even better. The XP being minimal when auto progression is off, that's a big
Hmm.
thing, especially during the regular season. Um, you can, I mentioned this earlier, you can manually spend points even when the auto is turned on. If you earn points after you play your game, you can go and look and go and spend those points.
Hmm.
Um, the play style calculations are awful for some, to the point that, for example, for north-south receiver running back, I'm like an A plus, but then for east west, I've got zero receptions, it says. Even though they're both running backs, both
Hmm.
receptions, I get no credit towards that playing style. In fact, on the screenshot I've got, everyone just has a dash beside their rating because it's not accounting for anybody.
Wow.
Another perfect example is for safeties, for in the box safeties, it's
Hmm.
reversed. It's based upon tackles, but the more tackles you have, the lower your grade is. I don't have a safety with a lot of tackles,
Uh-huh.
so I'm really highly rated, even though I have like very little tackles. So again, there's a lot of those. I can probably put together the full list of it, but it's just another one is outside linebacker thumper for tackles. I don't get credit for that. I don't know if they're looking only at outside linebacker thumpers to credit for those tackles or what it is, but to me, it should just be any linebacker that makes a
Right.
tackle gets added to it. So there's a lot of those. It's very frustrating. Um, in the off-season recruiting, when you advance to week 4 of the off-season recruiting, that's when all of the juniors now become seniors on the
Hmm.
roster. because of that, all of the playing time is totally recalculated, and lots of people just fall off completely, and you can never, target them anymore. So that's, you know, that's bad, and that may be another reason why some players never get signed because their deal breaker breaks that bad.
Hmm.
I've got some plays where the wide receiver will motion across in front of the quarterback, and depending upon what hash it's on, he'll get stuck on the quarterback and never be able to finish his motion. So I either get a delay a game or have to call a timeout. In offensive custom playbooks, the onside kick is the default option. You have to tab
Ugh,
over to be able to select the regular kickoff.
that's
Again,
cost me timeouts.
yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I would just get a delay a game or something like that, but all the same,
You
it
can on a
shouldn't be that
kickoff.
way.
You can on a kickoff.
You cannot?
If
Okay.
no, if you
I haven't even
select it,
tried.
there's no play clock. So if you select the onside kick, you got to kick it or do a timeout because it's not going to give you any kind of delay a game.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten used to it, but at the same time, you shouldn't have to get used to that.
I'm used
No.
to it, but then I did it again last game, and I just went with I just said screw it and went with the onside kick.
One that's not necessarily a bug, but it just seems like a poor design is that the cost to upgrade players of the same position but different archetype is the same for everyone. So, for example, you can have a route runner receiver, and his catch upgrade costs the same as a possession receiver. To me, it should be that the route runners, it should be less expensive to unlock route running, but more expensive for catching, and then
Hmm.
vice versa. For possession, they should be able to unlock catch a lot faster.
Right, I can see that.
But as it is, after you get in a season or two, the archetype doesn't matter really, other than unlocking the abilities, I guess.
Right.
This is one I haven't seen, but I read about, and I have to at least highlight it because I think I've seen somebody else mention the same thing. If in this case, the computer was attempting a 2 point conversion, they were down, let's say, 2 points or something like that. They failed on the 2 point conversion, but there was a penalty called, so the computer gets to reattempt the 2 point conversion. They convert it, get 6 points instead of two, and then next line up for a PA attempt, for a PAT attempt. So yeah, long story short, that's a bug.
Like I've seen the computer going for it on fourth and goal at the 5, which is I've never seen the computer go for it. And this is in the first quarter of a game too, instead of going for the field goal. So I'm seeing some weird stuff around the goal line for CPUs this year.
I've seen the suggested play is instead of going for a field goal, it's to go for it. Even though,
Yeah.
like you said, first quarter, 4th and 5 or whatever, or 4th and 10 from my own 20 or from the opposite 20 rather. That's an obvious field goal position. So just kick the field goal. But
Yeah, I've not just because of that, but early on into 25, I quit using that completely because it would give me the worst plays. But now it's giving you, now you got, it's giving you that, like you said, on the fourth downs. But it was giving me bad plays in 25, so I quit touching it. And I would notice it in 26. Yeah, I'd say go for it. I'm like, what? This is stupid, but okay, I'm still gonna ignore you and go call my own play.
well, and I never use it except obviously it defaults to it whenever
That's
you are on 4th down. So it's,
Yeah.
glaringly, and you have to go back out and go select special teams and then tab over to field goal and whatever else. So
I used to use it
yeah,
in Madden a lot, which is why I started using
Mhm.
it on college, but then the just the logic was so crap. I quit doing it. Now I never use it for either.
Doesn't it also default
uh,
to those like change possession sometimes it'll default to it. So I know sometimes I'll catch myself in it like I'll run one play out of it, then the next play, next down I go in there and I'm like, well, these plays are silly. I
Or
got stuck
or
on.
change of quarter defaults to Hail Mary.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
yeah,
There are times
yeah.
it
Well,
defaults
no,
to it.
it's
I'm like,
it's both.
it catches me.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, if you reached 4th down on your previous drive, I think that's when it defaults on your next drive to yeah. It's silly. Just a few more to cover. One that I'm sure everyone has seen, but it's a huge oversight, and I can't believe EA didn't adjust it. the music that appears over the deal breaker when you're in the recruiting. You cannot see it. You have to wait for the, 5 seconds or whatever for it to finally disappear. That's so annoying. Again, it's not a bug, or it's poor design. I'll say it's not a bug, but it's something that needs to be fixed.
On top of that, when you have like we do in our online dynasty where we can't call the same play back to back and whatnot, and the number of times you have left to call that play is covered by the scheme or the type of
Yeah.
play.
Yep. Yeah. Again, poor design.
Can I, on the music question here, noticed that issue, and at launch I went to main menu, hold down R3, and then press the start button, or whatever you want to call it, or settings button. You can tell it to turn off, disable for streaming, basically. Basically, it just turns the damn thing off. Uh, I've noticed, and maybe this is a sound system issue, but I wonder if anybody else has seen this. Go in there and turn that off. One, that will obviously turn all the music off. You'll lose the pop-up, so that'll help with your issue, Tommy. But I've noticed that when I do that, when I get in the menus of the game, it does something to my sound system that disables the sound. So if I then go into a game, I have no audio. I have to go tell my sound system to, it's already on, isn't like it went to sleep mode, but it does something weird. It doesn't play right. So I need to know if it's my sound system or if it's something with the game. And right now I'm leaning 60-40. It's a game issue. Because I have decided to now leave it back on and live with the pop-up just for the sake of when I go into a game, I don't have to grab my TV remote and tell it, oh yeah, switch to TV audio, and then it magically finds the receiver again. I think there's some weird quirk within EA's music system, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, I haven't tested that,
Mm,
but I'd be curious as well.
mm,
Yeah, I've always had
Uh,
it on so far, so
mm,
yeah. Speaking of, pre-launch, there was that screenshot that popped up that showed Spotify.
mm-hmm.
I've not seen anything else mentioned about that. The only thing I did see is on the EA forums. Basically, someone from EA said we can't comment on features that are still work in progress or something like that. So the question is it coming, or was it just something that they were testing early on and shouldn't
And
have shown
disabled.
it or whatever? Yeah. So I'd be curious if that comes back because I would kind of like that option, but at the same time, I want to be able to see the deal breaker. So if I need to
Right.
just turn off the music, then so be it. Kind of along the same lines of music, if you go into practice mode, the
Mm.
music in the play call menu is cranked way up, like way up.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get on the field, it goes way back down. So
oh,
again,
I got an
it's
idea. Well, this won't maybe help with the pop-up, but isn't there sliders for music that you could turn it to zero, not turn it off, but turn it down to zero? You'll still get the pop-up, but so maybe I won't. Is there a separate option for the pop-up? I haven't looked into that
No.
too much. Okay.
no.
But if you just turn it off disable completely for streaming, then it goes away.
Hmm.
Kind of along the same lines of practice. If you don't hit X after the play is over, it'll go to celebrations, including seeing fans on, in the stands and the mascot dancing around and stuff like that. If that happens to you too many times, you end up getting a animation after every single play.
Hmm.
And so you run the play, have to wait for the celebration animation to complete before you can call the next play.
Didn't they also,
It's
if you go to the pause screen in practice, it gives you stats? Like it
yes.
tracks all the stats too for some
To
reason.
me, that's not a horrible thing, but at the same
I doubt that was
time,
intentional though.
yeah, I would
That's
wonder as well.
I think that's the whole problem is like there's something out in that code to view it as a game. I
Yeah,
think that's why you're getting those cutscenes and getting this stat tracking because something broke or bled into practice mode.
yeah. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but the fake snaps, if you fake snap and the defense jumps off sides, you can't immediately snap whenever they're off sides. You're like stuck, so you can't
Yeah.
actually snap the ball. Um, the play art that they said was fixed is still broken. So if you hold down the R2, the coach view too quickly and let it go too quickly, it'll get stuck on the field. So if you hold it open for a full second and then let go, then it won't get stuck on the field. But again, EA said they fixed it and it's still there. One of the strange ones that I've seen, I think just saw it today, but I saw several people echoing. they won the national championship with their team and then dropped in prestige.
I've seen that.
So yeah, so if they could be a 4-star, 5-star that either won the national championship or got really far in the playoffs or whatever, and now all of a sudden they're a 3-star, 4-star. And in their example, they said that USC hadn't even made the playoffs in their 5 seasons or whatever, but yet they increased to a 5-star. I mean, there's still probably more. That's kind of what my scratch pad notes over the past, few days or whatever. But, again, a lot of those are things that most people probably will never even see or never even notice. But at the same time, it sings to how many things that got missed by EA. And at the same time, if you experience all of these, then you're just going to have a really negative opinion on the game. So I can
Right.
totally understand where some of those people are at. I've seen most of these. I
Hmm.
thankfully haven't had any game crashes. I haven't had the 2-point conversion thing that I talked about, but most of these I've seen at one time or another. And again, every time I see it, it just sours me on the game again.
There's also the wear and tear issue where on the, what is it, from the menu within Dynasty, you can set your in and out fatigue levels and defensive. I don't want to get this wrong. Defensive
Defensive
end
tackle,
list, but defensive tackle is missing.
yes,
Do we know if is that a typo? Is it supposed to say defensive line? Even that would not be great
possibly.
because you want those two different position groups. But I'm just trying to figure out what EA got wrong here exactly. Did they miss a group or did they mislabel it?
I think they missed a group because if you read the description, it also says defensive end.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think they missed a group more than likely.
The game desperately needs a internal branding guide. I mean, this is nitpicking now, but there's no consistency with how they write positions out. There's no consistency with how they even write things like top 25. There's, I think part of it
Or
is people who aren't big college football fans, which is fine. But then you guys spell this thing out to them so they get it right. I mean, there's just a lot of little things that can detract more from the experience.
Or in the game summary paragraph from the main menu, like after you've played a game and it
Mm.
tells you, a 1 or 2 sentences or whatever, it still uses the abbreviations, even though there's zero reason to.
Right,
Northern Illinois is still in dot Illinois. There's no reason. I
right.
mean, just say Northern Illinois.
Be good to
No, I
see
think.
Tommy's list on the next show too. See if it's bigger.
If we wait long enough, it could be a paragraph worth of stuff here. I do want. There's one thing that I thought was interesting. I have not seen anybody talk about this yet. It's not a bug. It's something that I think we all knew was coming. Fire up the game, get it on the main menu. Maybe when you start up the game, you get one pop up for Ultimate Team, one splash screen, and you X through it.
Uh,
I don't always get it. I noticed the other night on July 31st. I've not checked today, but I noticed that there was on the lower left a view. So you click on view, square to expand the view, and there were four different Ultimate Team related promo or new card information. You click on triangle for featured news from the main menu on July 31st. It told me of two other promos, Ultimate Team's things going on. So theoretically, you could have that one pop up. And then, granted, the other ones were not in your face, but if you dug through them because you thought maybe there's something new or relevant here, there were six different windows telling you about Ultimate Team promos and events going on. And I'm not an anti Ultimate Team guy. I'm also not massively pro Ultimate Team, but I can see why people get ticked at it. I can see why it's polarizing. It's one of those things that we talked about this privately, and now I think we can bring it publicly. We wondered towards the end of 25, would they ever put a splash screen in telling people to buy 26, telling them about the news of the game? They never did it. Throughout 25, we did get a couple of those splash screens on startup telling, hey, there's a new title update. Scan this QR code for more information. That's great. They need to do more of that. But we never got that at the end of 25 telling people to buy 26 or to see the news about 26. And
The,
then
the
now
one
we have not got that for title updates either.
the one thing I saw for 25 was the 99-cent EA Play.
Yeah.
But again, it wasn't a hey, go buy 26, it's out now. Or I haven't launched the game since the I haven't launched 25 since 26 came out. But yeah, I'd be curious if they have any. Hey, did you know 26 is out?
Hey, go home. We're not here anymore. Go by 26. We're not here. I don't mean this as harshly as this sounds, but are we about to get dropped from Madden in terms of Madden's coming out? We know that there's already not a ton of communication between EA and the community. And the one guy who's probably the best at it, also has a pretty big role on Madden as well. So is the communication about to go completely in the tank beyond outside of any title update blogs?
That's the thing is they've never been good at communicating. I mean, last year you
Right.
would have some developers that would, tweet stuff, but usually it was always super over the top, like how great we are. There was very little news or,
Mm,
things like that. I imagine the guy that did with this was the most vocal that I saw. Yes, he's going to be focused on Madden once it launches.
mm,
So there's still plenty of developers that are out there.
mm,
To me, they should be, I understand not engaging from their personal channels, but engage from the official channels. Have an official channel that is, you know, CFB discusses or something like that, and let them open up questions to the community or whatever.
mm.
Yes, they're going to get tons of EA is trash and all that stuff, but at the same time, you can still wade through that and get some of the good feedback. So,
They're not asking anything positive to emerge the way they're doing it.
right, right, for sure.
Do you think Madden? There was a discussion pre-release that maybe the college football marketing had been reduced or neutered because they wanted Madden to fare better this year. And if what we saw earlier on social media or on Reddit is correct that the game is down, doing trending about a third of last year, does that mean Madden's going to have a big increase, or will we find out that college might have lifted Madden a little bit last year in terms of the MVP bundled together, for example, or people just every other year now? I'm interested to see what happens with Madden. I don't have a prediction, but I could see where maybe it's a big year for Madden. I could also see where maybe it drops as well.
To me, there's the people who aren't tuned in to Twitter or Reddit
Mm,
or EA in general, there's no reason for them to go and buy the game. To me, the
mm,
reasons to buy the game are, oh my gosh, this game is surprisingly good, or oh wow, they really did
mm,
this, new feature over the top or whatever. Those are word of mouth that, eventually ends up in your feed, and so yeah, you go and check the game out. I haven't seen anything like that out of EA that unless they launch and it's in really, really good shape,
mm.
then they're just going to have the same issues that they've had in previous years.
I haven't seen anything really. I mean, that's screaming to me of Madden. Like, there's nothing, it seems like I couldn't tell you what the main thing of Madden is this year, really. Just
Coaches.
because, just because I just haven't seen anything really. Nobody's hyped it up. Nobody's, you know, I think the big thing the big thing that's going to make people's heads turns is if they completely have overhauled Dynasty to where it is working as it should with or fr franchise, whatever the hell you call it. But
Mm.
you know, that's been a want for a long time. So I think until then, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen anything. I can't even tell you what the top thing they're promoting this year is because I just haven't seen anybody talk about it.
I know when they revealed the new weather impacts, that was pretty big on social media at least, but I don't know if that permeates to the at-large crowd though. But on social media, that was a big discussion point for a few days when they saw like especially the snow games, when you couldn't see down the snow or fog or whatever you want to call it, where you couldn't see downfield beyond maybe 15 yards. Like that garnered a lot of attention, but I don't think the
Yeah, I
average
mean,
person cares about that.
there's some features that are added to Madden that I would want in
Hmm.
college football, and it'll probably be there next year. But at the same time, there's nothing that stands out that says, "Oh, I got to go out and buy Madden this year."
So what happens if
Yeah,
Madden drops this year?
it did the what was the what was the Madden crowd's perception of it last year even? Was it
They thought
still kind of down again?
yes, the perception I kind of gathered online was people thought that college was better than it. I saw people say that college dog walked it, but I'm thinking Madden was still a top 10 game, selling game in the country, so it wasn't that bad. But I think the perception, at least online, was that college was better. And I think now the perception is I've seen a lot of Madden guys say that they expect the gameplay in Madden to be way better than college football this year. Even today, I saw somebody saying that they believe that the Madden getting pushed back a week or college a week earlier, whatever, that gap is going to make the difference to where Madden's gameplay is better. I mean, I thought college football's gameplay would be way better than it is. So you don't know till it releases.
Yeah, for sure. And then as well, you don't know until after they release the patches because
Right.
all of the launch gameplay is going to go out the window.
Hmm.
Kind of to I guess counterbalance all of the negative feelings that
Mm.
we've had towards the game a lot in this show. I will say there are still a lot of good things. The one of the ones that I've seen, and I saw one other person mention it, there's a defensive holding penalty. If you kind of
Mm,
block a receiver's route, you're going to get a penalty called against you. I mean, that's a good thing. I've
right.
done it on accident times, but it's kind of something new at least.
Mm,
The decleating blocks,
yeah,
that's
they're nice.
kind of awesome once you see that and you run right by it.
Mm,
The player movement overall to me is a big improvement. Like I said,
hmm
just using the left stick to be able to bob your head side to side and then take off to me is another nice, big improvement. The rating stretch for all of the players, not only in the base roster, but then also in
mm,
the dynasty. You're not going to find those 95 speed receivers all over the place, especially not at 3-star. So, it's yeah, it's an improvement overall, just from all of the ratings.
mm,
There's more missed throws to where your quarterback can be set. You can have a good pass, but it can still throw it high to the receiver. He's running across the middle, and he has to reach up to catch it, so he has to slow down.
mm,
That's something we haven't really seen much in the past. Lots of blocking issues, but the open field lead blocking, once you kind of get out there, is a big improvement.
hmm
They'll pick up that block that's out there in front of you. Broken arm tackles running through the middle of the line, and the defensive lineman tries to reach for you, but he can't, so you slide right off of him.
mm,
Again, there's a lot of great things that are here that get either overlooked or that people are focused on all the negative things, that it sours the game for
mm,
them. And it sours the game for me too. So I completely understand. It's
mm,
EA is not going to get the respect that they are wanting for as a developer until the game is up to that, it's
hmm
polished and it has all of these features that are well designed, well thought of, and they work as designed.
With that, we'll wrap up this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. Make sure to follow us on X at Gaming Tailgate. Visit us at thegamingtailgate.com. For Tommy and JB, I am CDJ. Everyone, thank you for watching and listening to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast.